Day number 167 in Washington State on the Pacific Crest Trail. Took a little break from this ascent I'm currently on right now to take in the view. And this view is becoming a common thing here in the Cascades just south of Mount Rainier. There's a ton of these little meadows that are probably extremely marshy in the spring and in the fall, the late fall. But right now they're relatively dry and they are loaded with all of these ponds. In fact, there's so many of these ponds that they don't even have names. This one, I looked on the map. If it has a name, the name is not on my particular map. And it's actually pretty good size. So there's just tons and tons of these things right around 5,000 feet south of Mount Rainier in the Cascades. And you can see also there's a small peak poking up right there, that little tiny triangle. That is called Bizmark Peak. And as we are in the Evergreen state right now, Washington State, there are evergreens everywhere. And right here in this particular spot, in this area, there are tons and tons of these cedar trees. You can kind of see these. This is a familiar sight for anybody who lives in the Northwest. And this particular cedar tree is called a red cedar. And it's actually called a western red cedar. And it's identifiable because it is really droopy. You can see how all of the leaves kind of droop down. And also the bark gets really stringy, especially as the tree gets larger. It gets really stringy, and if you look underneath the stringy bark, you'll see the red underneath the brown stringy bark. And so that's called the western red cedar. And then also in this particular area, like I said, we're around 5,000, just below it. There's a ton of these thin fir trees. They're everywhere. You can see them here in the distance. They almost look like perfect, really tall, thin trees. And these are called, as far as I can tell, Subalpine Fir. And they are identifiable by a whole bunch of stuff. I looked in my tree guide to try to dial these things in. But one of the main tells is that the cones, not only are they tall and thin, but the cones are only in the top portion of the tree. So you have the tree, there's no cones except for just on the top few feet. And that's where you're going to find the pine cones on the Subalpine Fir. Tall, thin, around 5,000 feet, cones on the top. So anyway, fun stuff. I've started hiking with a little field guide to help me identify some of the foliage and fauna around here at day number 167 in Washington State on the Pacific Crest Trail in Section I.